Messiah. Prepare the nations. May you come speedily in our days, in our times. Let us say together, Amen and Amen. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We begin our service, our worship service on page 7. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sechvi bina lechavchin ben yom uven layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shon matir asurim.
Look what he's saying. Share, share, share worldwide now. Because this is their critical mass. So they believe there's enough power that they'll be able to draw their Antichrist to come. And my husband just very intelligently pointed out, it feels like the showdown of Elijah on the mountain with the 450 prophets of Beelzebub, yeah, and they were all crying and praying and cutting themselves. I'm not saying these guys are cutting themselves. Yeah. Yes, Jesus comes when he's ready to come. I decided it might be a little too hard to hear me talk and him talk saying at the same time. I'm sorry, excuse me for that. The point is that they're begging, crying, pleading, blah, 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 for their God to come. And my husband pointed out that none of that needs to happen when Jesus comes. Because guess what? Jesus doesn't come by our will. We can call for him. We can pray. We can ask him. We can seek him. We can love him. But God comes when God's ready. And God uses feast days to fulfill his purpose. Right. He doesn't need humans to call him. He does what he wants. That's his will. So they have been all morning long been singing and praying. Well, I don't know about praying, but they've been singing. And now they're praying, singing to him. And that is actually a biblical concept, to give thanks and whatnot in song. But these guys are unfortunately setting up the whole world for the Antichrist, which is why Shapira is saying, share, 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 get everybody on board with this. Share, share, share worldwide now, with a triple exclamation point. And so see, people are, I'm from Africa, South Africa, shalom. I have been cut out of this since I, of course, was trying to share the truth. But that's okay.
The angel of the Lord and 2 other angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah and talked to Abraham. Abraham didn't have to jump and shout and get a bunch of people to do the wicked hands to get the angel of the Lord to come to earth and blow away Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, my husband was pointing out from Genesis, remember, where the angel of the Lord, Yahweh, and the 2 angels came down to Sodom and Gomorrah to look around and see what was going on. He did that for his own will. And we were told that judgment would come again, the days of Lot and the days of Noah. And you're there now, again, all over again. See, Indonesia, Philippines, Texas, and they all are being moved and directed towards this Antichrist that Jesus Christ said in Matthew 24 very clearly would be coming. He's about ready to enact in typology the greater. Remember when Jesus cursed the fig tree, and people have, so often said, "Chaw, why did he do that? Did he expect there to be figs there?" And we've done a bunch of videos talking about that. But the thing that people don't a lot of times especially in commentary form, don't seem to understand. Jesus is setting that up to tell you that he's coming again to cut off the fig tree for realsies. That's why we talk about Yom Hadin and Feast of Trumpets. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Verse 5. So that is what this is.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torah.
That is a little hard to take because I know that they're calling for the devil. You know, they're really calling to be cut off so that the beginning of the sorrows, the birthing pains can begin. I know that a lot of Gentiles have been taught that when Jesus is talking in Matthew 24 here, that there's this lead up of birthing pains to the 7-year tribulation. But when you actually study out this verse in Hebrew, it means the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. It means the 70th week of Daniel. It means the time of testing coming upon the whole world. And they're getting ready to set up for it. And God is telling you, look, this is going to be the name of the game all throughout the 7 years during that period of time. And here is your application of what the Noahide laws will do for you. It's the beginning of sorrows, the birthing pains. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted, shall kill you, and shall be hated of all nations for my sake. So those that get cut off in unbelief, well, some of them repent, right? And that's their fate. They're going to run straight into Noahide. And then many shall be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And verse 11, many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. And that's what's happening here. It kind of was smart of him to have this playing for so long before, because if anybody came to it to preach or anything, they could pretty much figure out who they needed to edit out of it at that point and cut them off, silence them, because that's how the devil plays, right? You can't give an opposing viewpoint about anything. We just shut you down, silence you, censor you. And that's a little taste of how the whole next 7 years is going to be. One of these Feast of Trumpets, possibly this one. It's looking like it could be this one from the standpoint of Hebrews 10:25 and 26. I'll put those scriptures in the description box below because that is speaking to us. It's hard to say 100% at this point, but as we just continue crawling towards Rosh Hashanah, the Bible says that we shall see the day approaching. Now, the Pope's got some stuff he's got cooked up for next year as well that's pretty creepy on Israel's birthday. So, when you have the devil playing mind games, it's kind of hard to track and figure out exact things. But this is why we're called to be born again. And if you're born again, then you're anticipating your inheritance. So Jesus is telling you, and I wish I could tell those people, I wish I have the heart of an evangelist. He's giving you a brief overview here. Here we go. And he wants you to understand, going back over what he just detailed to you, so double emphasis. When a Jew says something more than once, it means pay attention. This is a big, big deal. And it is. Because this is where, I will say this. There is, before the birthing pains, Jacob's time of trouble starts, there is warning about these false prophets. And Rabbi Shapira is one of those false prophets, as well as many, many others. And a lot of these Christian ministers that are not speaking out about this, or they're shilling for Chabad and saying, oh, anybody that says anything other than what, anybody that criticizes this particular nation in any way, you're being anti-Semitic, which is so silly because born-again Christians worship a Jew. So they've actually taken a hold of the language and changed it and changed the core context of meaning of what anti-Semitism means. So it used to mean that you would hate a whole group of people based on some silly factor. If you don't agree with us, if you don't say that, if you don't If you do not agree with everything we say, and if you choose to criticize anything or pour it through a biblical worldview, then you're an anti blah, 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 which is really foolish because that's how the left plays it. That's how the communists play it. But anyhow, so after Christ gives this run through of what you can expect, he does say here in verse 23, therefore, if any man say unto you, lo, here's Christ. So you mean a fake Jew that's going to call himself Christ as a title? Messiah is coming, a Jew. Let me just say that again. So Christ is telling you that if any man should come and say to you, here is Christ, the Messiah, a Jewish Messiah, or there, believe it not. Why? For there shall arise many false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Who are the elect?
They're calling a rabbi that died over 10 years ago, the Messiah. They're still celebrating his birthday after he's been dead for 10 years. And there's only one Messiah, and he was here 2,000 years ago. He's coming again, but he's not going to die before.
It's just so frustrating. It really is just so frustrating. Yes, and I detailed to you in other videos how they are worshiping this Schneerson guy that died quite some time ago and calling him the Mashiach. They have this whole thing with reincarnation, and they believe that he's going to come back in the body of this, what would be the Antichrist. So the elect are anybody who is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, but people sometimes, it takes certain things for people to be born again and saved. So you have elect now, but you're going to have elect in the tribulation to come as well. And you have lots of Christians that are deceived. They actually think that Rabbi Shapira is doing something to call forth Jesus the Christ from the cross. That actually is false. That is untrue.
Never said anywhere in the Bible, I need you to call me before I come back.
Exactly. So it's a big setup. And then where does he go? Look, and this is where you really need to be paying attention. And this is absolutely critical, especially if they are setting up for him coming in just a very short period of time. So today's the 21st. We know for a fact that Rosh Hashanah will be on the 30th. So if they are setting up for him and the Messiah is coming and the fake Messiah is coming, Jesus warned you in verse 26, wherefore if they say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers of your heart. Like you're Christ too. Look, you're God too. Believe it not, because they're going to mix in Kabbalah. They're going to mix in New Age. This is going to get very convoluted and confusing, right? And in the desert, we talked about this. We did a video. In the UN has a compound there in the desert, and it's all like barbed wired up and like, stay out of it and real weird stuff. And I theorize that he is probably in that, and he is probably honestly watching as he's hooked up to AI, and he's probably watching everything that's going on. And he's going to be your new humanity that they want, that they've been bragging about having. So Jesus says, this is not the Messiah. But Jesus says, how will you know that it's me? For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west, so also shall be the coming of the Son of Man. We're not talking about the Feast of Atonement or what the Gentiles title the second coming when he comes in Zechariah, 14 to the Mount of Olives. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the beginning of the end, not the end of the end, the beginning of the end on Feast of Trumpets, Yom Hadin, the Messiah coming to gather his bride and his sons of God to clothe us in our glorified flesh. That's what's happening in this verse. You'll know the real Messiah because you'll see this lightning coming east to west, and it's the Son of Man. And then you go to Revelation 10, and you have Yom Hadin occurring, where he cuts off the damned. The Torah portion of the reading for Rosh Hashanah is Genesis 21. As Abraham cut off Hagar, so is Jesus coming to cut off unbelievers. That's why Paul quoted that in Galatians 4. Carcasses, eagles, bad.